Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And all I have to say is I want to elaborate on what I said the last podcast regarding I was thrown in jail in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for 9 days. Well, my son had gotten off his ass and called my lawyers, let him know where I was at. I would only spent 2 days in jail instead of 9, so I spent 7 extra days in jail because my son wanted to make a big deal out of not calling my lawyers. Now, what kind of bullshit is that? You can't count on your own son or your family. Who can you count on? And if you can't count on your family, and even your sons, walk away. Let them enjoy their life. Let them enjoy their business because they wouldn't get in my business, so that's okay. Now, my oldest son, I know that my youngest son called him the night that I called my youngest son. I know what my youngest son does. I know exactly how they act. He called my oldest son, let him know everything that was happening. And my oldest son sat on his ass also. And he could have called my lawyers. He could have been strong and said, hey, JT, you're wrong for what you're doing. He needs you to call his lawyers. And he would have called, but he didn't call. He sat on his ass also, and he knows that I know that. So kiss my ass. That's all I can say. Just kiss my ass. Because I'm enjoying my life, and I enjoyed the fact that I even had to sit in jail. I handled it. Believe me, I did. I did my push-ups every day, and I ran my laps. I ran like 1,000 laps every day in my cell. My cell was like a 8x10 cell, 8x12 cell, and I would run from corner to corner. From corner to corner, keep on running, take a break, and then run another 500 laps. So I ran 1,000 laps every day, did 200 push-ups every day, a set of 50 each time, worked up to 50 each time. I started doing each set. I started 20, then the next set I did 21, the next set I did 22, and so on and so on. Every set I did one more push-up until I worked up to 50 push-ups per set. So I just added 1%. That's all I did until I got up to the lovely number of 50. 50 is a good number in life anyway. But I've had a good time no matter what my age. I've always enjoyed my life. We can't change who we are, and we can't change when we were born and who our mother or father was. We can't change any of that. So we should look at it with joy because we were given the opportunity of birth from our mother's womb. We were born. And when we're born from our mother's womb, the second we enter God's world, we scream and we cry because we're scared. Then they spank us on the ass. And we don't like being out of our mother's womb. We're scared now because it's a new world. We're in God's world. And we learn every day how to enjoy ourselves in God's world. And what a beautiful planet this is that we are able to enjoy. Anybody doesn't appreciate life and doesn't appreciate the earth they're on and litters and throws their litter on the ground, they can kiss my ass. I hate litter bugs. I despise them because they throw their negligence in our face, while we have to stare at the litter on the ground. If they didn't throw the litter on the ground, we wouldn't have to stare at it while we're hiking up a trail or driving down a highway and see litter along the highway. People throw their litter out of their cars all the time because nobody's watching them. In America, people worry about people watching them when they litter. In India, they don't. They'll litter right in front of you. It's a way of life. They're not ashamed of it. It's in their culture. And that's why India is the dirtiest country that I ever visited in my lifetime. The rivers are polluted. The streets are polluted. Everything is polluted. When you go hiking it's not the mountains, but when you walk down a hiking path, you see litter along the path. It's just the way they are. They're not embarrassed about throwing their litter on the ground. It's embedded in their culture. So that's one of the things I really didn't like about India. Other than that, I love the people. The people are very friendly, very nice, hardworking. They don't work as hard as Americans, but they work 6 days a week. In Vietnam, they work 7 days a week. They're only allowed to take 1 day off each week from the working schedule. 1 day they're able to take off. Per month. 1 day per month. That's correct. 1 day per month. Otherwise, they work 7 days a week. That's the Vietnamese culture. That's how they roll. India, they work 6 days a week and take Sunday off. They work Monday through Saturday. In America, these wacky Democrats wanted to turn it into like a 4-day work week. Well, I'm going to tell you something about that. The less we work, the worse off we are as a culture. So the 5-day work week is much better for the economy also. It's much better. And people are healthier working and having something to do. The more you lay around, the lazier you get, the less testosterone you're going to have in your body because the fast food diet crushes you, it kills you. Mankind is losing its testosterone level. In America, the testosterone level went down 15% in the last 10 years. That's more than 10% each decade, like it has been in the past. 15% man's testosterone level went down in the last 10 years. That's one of the reasons why I was so proud to sell sex capsules, because they offer natural testosterone to the human body. And I'll mention some more strong things about that as I go on, because I will never forget talking about sex capsules, because that was the greatest path that I was ever on in my lifetime, other than running this podcast. This podcast, I hope, will be the greatest path that I've ever been on in my lifetime in the future. So hopefully I'll get better at this. This is like my 4th episode. And let me get back to being thrown in jail. Being thrown in jail, that's like, I was smoking a joint. Okay, I broke the law. I was smoking a half a joint. And the cop had to go out of his way to make a big deal out of it and look at me. Was he really sitting there in the middle of that highway looking for somebody to smoke a joint? Is that really how boring his life was, or how boring his occupation was, to go after somebody who's smoking a half a joint while I'm waiting for my Greek food? Well, I guess it was, because he sure showed his boredom immensely. After he arrested me, like I said, and he took me down to jail, racing his car like 100 miles an hour down to the jail. He started saying some bullshit, and I says, "You're a lying sack of shit," when I was in the back of the cop car. I told him he was full of shit right from the start, especially when he arrested me and told me, "Oh, there's not going to be any big deal if you have less than 14 grams of weed in your vehicle. There's nothing to worry about." Well, that's all bullshit, because then he led up to where I was staying, and then he went and searched my suitcases, and that's where he found the extra 5 ounces of weed. It was actually exactly 5.6 ounces is what he found me with, what he discovered in my suitcases, in 3 jars. I had it in 3 jars to keep it fresh, so it would stay fresh while I was on the road, and I'd pull a little bit out and put it in another bag, and then smoke that, and then eventually pull a little bit more out of the one jar, and keep it fresh in those jars, in those mason jars. Like you keep fruit in, and say when you bottle peaches, you put them in a larger mason jar. Well, this is a small size mason jar that would hold up to a couple ounces if you crammed it in. And so I had 3 jars of wheat, and not exactly an ounce, or not exactly 2 ounces, like a 1.5 ounces, 1.7 ounces in each jar, or 1.8. So it added up to 5.6. So that would be like a 1.8, and plus I had a little weed in my bag in the suitcase loose, or on my rolling dish. And so I, basically got caught. That's what they wrote me up for, 5.6 ounces of weed. They tried to say that I was distributing it. They tried to accuse me of being a distributor of marijuana. And I said, "You're full of shit." And I think that's what he wanted me to sign in the jail, and wanted to try to get me to sign, that I admitted that I was distributing. But I snatched the paper out of his hand, and I said, "I'm not signing shit until I look at what I signed." I already made that mistake when I signed that contract with my lawyers, because I trusted my lawyer, Matt Johnson. That was a culprit. That was a culprit in my lifetime, because I actually thought he was my next best friend in my life. In my life currently at that time, I thought he was my next best friend when I signed that contract. That's how naive I was about Matt Johnson. Born in Ogden, Utah, the same state that I was born in. I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. Ogden's like 40, 50 miles north of Salt Lake. And he actually, after I signed the contract and I gave him the retainer, this guy flew up to like Salt Lake City or Ogden or wherever he flies up from Vegas, and would go up to Eden, Utah. That's where he goes. Every weekend he goes up to Eden, Utah. He can't get his wife to come down to Vegas, the greatest city in the world. He goes up there every weekend. And he was flying up there on my money, the money he stole from me, the $150,000. He claimed that it was like only he got $50,000 out of his end, and Mike Sampt got the other $100,000 that he set me up with. Mike Sampt Law, the true culprit, the true scumbag, the wannabe gangster. Would you want a lawyer to represent you that wants to act like a gangster? Because I guarantee you, being a gangster is caring about yourself. It's not caring about the rest of the world. That's part of being a gangster. Well, he wants to act like a gangster lawyer. Like he doesn't have to give me any money back. In fact, he says, you're going to owe me more money after taking me to the Bar Association and wasting my time. Well, I'll tell you how I'm going to waste his time. I'm going to take him to district court and waste more of his time. And then I'm going to be on his back heels the rest of my life. I'm going to be on his back heels and remind the public who Mike Sampt is. Never do business with this guy. This guy's an absolute scumbag, along with Matt Johnson. Matt Johnson is actually more guilty than Mike because Matt was my friend. I knew Matt. Matt was who set me up with Mike. Mike didn't know me from Adam. I didn't know Mike. If Matt hadn't set me up with Mike, I never would have had to meet him in my lifetime. But ultimately, I met another scumbag because I was set up by a scumbag. Matt Johnson at Johnson & Googler. He could definitely kiss my ass, and I guarantee you that I'm taking him to district court. I'm going to sue him for the entire $150,000. I tried to get him to give me back $100,000 at the Bar Association in the Zoom meeting. I tried to get him to give me back $100,000 and take a $50,000 loss. And I found out that they only offered me pennies, like $1,000, $2,000 or $3,000 total to give me back. They want to keep the other $147,000 and say that it's their right to have that money because I signed their phony contract. You can't have somebody sign a contract if you're a lawyer unless it's of importance. You can't take that large of a retainer off of a targeted text. So that means they targeted me in the first place. And they had me sign that flat rate predatory contract. Lawyers used to do it all the time back in the old days, and it used to work. But believe me, it doesn't work as much as they think it does anymore. They think they're going to get my money and going to keep my money. Hopefully I'll be dealing with an honest judge that will uphold the law, and I'll get my money back. Hopefully most of it, if not all of it. But in the meantime, I already warned him. I told him, I said, if you don't give me back my $100,000, at least $100,000 out of the $150,000 in the Zoom meeting with the Bar Association, I'm going to expose you publicly on my podcast. Well, they didn't think I'd do a podcast in the first place because they obviously think that they were doing business with a nobody. They were stealing from a nobody. Just a person who was going to give them the money that I made and not fight him back. Well, I've learned to fight the right way. I've learned to fight professionally and do it the right way, and that's why I'm taking them to court. As far as my podcast goes, I'm exposing them on purpose because I have that talent. And if they want to sue me, they're sue hungry, and they want to take me to court and sue me later on, so be it. Go ahead and do it, because all I'm telling them is the truth. It's my money they took. It's my money they don't want to give back. It's my money they think it's theirs. And they haven't done anything for me. I fired them before I was indicted. I fired them like 4 months before I was indicted. I fired them in April, and I was indicted in August. So I went to court. My first court case, believe it or not, in federal court was the same day, September 10th. Remember that day? That's the same day that Charlie Kirk was shot and murdered in Provo, Utah. Well, that's a beautiful city. That's a beautiful area. It's nestled in the mountains like Salt Lake, and it's got like a Sundance ski resort. Robert Redford used to live up there in that canyon and in Provo Canyon, and it's got Utah Lake in front of it that's kind of polluted, but it's a beautiful lake God created, and they've kind of cleaned it up a lot since like 30 or 40 years ago. It used to be really, really bad 30 or 40 years ago. Utah Lake. You got the Great Salt Lake west of Salt Lake City. That's what keeps all the snow in the mountains and keeps the snowfall and gives us the Utah flake. That's what the Utah flake actually has one stronger texture to it than any other snowflake in the world. The Utah flake, and that's why Utah has the best powder skiing in the world on Earth, hands down. The skiing in Utah is the best. It has the best snow. And the ski resorts usually stay open longer, up to like May or June. They'll stay open. They have the fake snow up in Park City, Utah, so they can rely on real snow. And if they don't get the real snow, they have the fake snow machines on the side of the ski runs that give you the fake snow, just like they do at in San Bernardino in the mountains in San Bernardino at whatever that resort's called. I'll think of it and I'll tell you later on. Anyway, tell me the name of that resort, Ivan. The resort in the mountains up above L.A. where they have the ski resort. Anyway, like getting back to when I was thrown in jail. When I was thrown in jail in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I spent the 9 days there, the 7 extra days that I spent there, I handled it well. When they let me out of jail and my lawyer showed up to bail me out with my money, it's $21,000 of my own money. $21,000 of my own money that I was bailed out with. And with my lawyer, he brought $30,000 out of my own money that was in my Matt's safe in his office that I kept there in case I got indicted or thrown in jail in federal court. I didn't know that you don't go to jail. I just figured that I needed bail money to get out, and that's what happened. So I had $30,000 in Matt's safe, and he had Mike fly out with the entire $30,000. He gave the $21,000 to the bondsman. His nickname was Coca-Cola. Hello, Coca-Cola, if you ever hear this podcast. Thanks for being there and taking care of business. And I don't care if you paid off somebody a little bit of money here or there. I know how maybe that's how the system works. But if you got to keep all the money, more power to you. But I didn't have to spend another day in jail. Well, that's a good thing. Instead of having to wait to go to court like 4 months later and sit in jail waiting to see the judge like I had to wait in Atlantic City. And I'll tell you that funny story in this podcast later on. Anyway, when I got bailed out of jail, was bailed out of jail by Coca-Cola, by Mike Stamp bringing my money out, I asked Mike, when he had the cab waiting for us to leave and go pick up my dog, to go get my dog Sky out of the police kennel. And that's the first thing we did, went and picked up Sky. But I asked him, I said, so you got a room last night? And he says, yeah. He says, I stayed in a nice hotel. I says, well, what did your room cost? He said, I don't know, $250, $250, $300. I said, what did you do? Stay in a three-star hotel? He says, yeah, I always stay in 3-star hotels. I never stayed in a 3-star hotel in my lifetime when I was a pool player or a poker player. And I thought in the back of my mind as he was telling me how much he spent for the room, and I said, well, I'll pay for the room. And I'm going to pay you commission for flying out here to bring my money out, to bail me out, to bond me out of jail. And he said, oh, great. And I said, I'm going to pay for your plane flight also. How much was your plane flight? Oh, it cost like $300 or $400 round trip. And I said, okay. And I threw that in on the bill and ended up paying him like $2,000 commission just for his flying out there for spending his time to bail me out for being there for the day he was there. So he got there the night before, and then in the morning he went and gave Coca-Cola, met Coca-Cola at his at his bond office or Bell bond office, and gave him the money, and the Coca-Cola came over to the jail with Mike. Coca-Cola was in a different car. And Mike came over in a cab. And the cab was there waiting for me when I got out of jail. So I paid Mike his $2,000 commission, plus I gave him like the reimbursement for his flight, for the cab fares, for the hotel, and in my rental car, which he had to rent. There's no enterprise rental at the airport, the Baton Rouge airport, only at the New Orleans airport, which I always use enterprise because of the best deal. But anyway, I was forced to use Avis, and I didn't have a credit card, and they only allowed credit cards. So I can use a debit card at enterprise, which is another good thing. And I recommend you use enterprise. Anytime you rent a car, use enterprise. They're the cheapest and the best service. And they have a great selection of cars. So go Enterprise, baby. Go Enterprise. So anyway, let's go back to me getting renting the car at Avis. It cost me a total of $6,000 to rent that car for about 5 weeks. I went out on the road for 5 weeks. And my first destination is I heard on the news, and I watched the news that Waters was doing on Waters World. Now it's called Waters Prime Time on Fox News. That Waters was doing a book signing down in Fort Myers, Florida. That's where I was destined to Fort Myers, Florida. I was going down there to his book signing, and I had to be down there on the next day because I just got let out of jail the day before. So I went down there and drove straight to Fort Myers. I drove the whole day after I got out of jail until late that night. And wait, I did stay in a motel room when I got to Florida. That's right. I did stay in a motel when I got to the tip of Florida. And I remember leaving that room and then driving all the way down through Florida that day, and getting to Fort Myers that night. Probably around 8, 9 o'clock at night, I got to Fort Myers. I arrived there. The book signing was at Barnes & Noble, but they were already closed when I got there. But I drove to Barnes & Noble, so I know how to find it. And then I got a motel room as close as possible to this bookstore, and got a good price room where I didn't get raped, stay in a 3-star hotel like Mike Senft likes to stay in every day. Well, that's how thieves think. They like to live high and live off other people's money. That's how shyster lawyers think, So that's what he does. I stay in normal motels that are pet friendly also. Anyway, the next morning I went over to the Barnes and Noble, and there was a huge line, like 3,000 people that waited to have Waters sign the book that they bought. 3,000. It's like a game. It's a game that lawyers play or writers play. It's a game that writers play when they have book signings. It gets a lot of people to come over there and buy their book, and they sign the book. Well, what I wrote in my book, a very important note that I put in my book is this: I don't believe in autographs. My autograph isn't worth any more money, worth any more value, have any more value than your autograph. And I've never asked anybody for an autograph in my lifetime. And that goes for any athlete, that goes for any actor, that goes for anybody. I've never asked anybody to give me their autograph. Never in my lifetime. I think it's a waste of time for somebody to ask me for my autograph. Although I would do it if they asked. I'm not cold-blooded, but I'm just saying that my autograph is worth no more than yours. So what's the purpose of an autograph? You buy my book, you read it. You learn from my book. You're not going to learn anything from my autograph. You're going to learn from my book. And that's why I wrote my book, because I want to express myself in my writing talent, with my writing talent that I was given to by God. God gave me the ability to write, and I wrote my own book. I didn't have a ghostwriter write my book. You see these newscasters write their books, and they say, oh, like later on, like 6 months later, oh, it's a bestseller, it's a bestseller. All these newscasters, they become writers. Automatically, they want to write a book because they know they have a market to buy their book. And that's why a lot of people write books and have books written. But I can guarantee you, most of those people, they don't write the book. They have a ghostwriter write the book. They're too busy to write a book. It takes a lot of work to write a book, trust me. It took me 2 years to complete my book. I started writing my book on February 24th in 2022, the same day that Russia invaded Ukraine. I was emotional, so I had to let my emotions out, and that's what I did. I started writing, and I started my chapter. My first chapter that I wrote was my chapter on politics. And then after, say, like 2 or 3 weeks went by, and I'd written like 30 or 40 pages, I got lazy, and I just quit writing, because that's how I am. I mean, I just wasn't motivated to write, and I just put the book down. Put the book down and didn't write another page until August. Until August, when the task force contacted me. When the task force contacted me, that was my fate. On August 3rd, 2022, 100 years, exactly 100 years from the same day that my mother was born in 1922, Mary Patterson Weber, of English descent. Or I'm of English and Irish descent. That's why I have the last name Weber, W-E-B-B-E-R. If my name was German, it would have one B, but I'm of English and Irish descent. So that's why my name has two B's. And so that was an emotional day. And after that day, that's when God got me off my ass. I was remotivated, and I started writing my book, and I never, ever quit writing until I completed it. I finally completed my book in like April 2023. And I would write a chapter, and then I'd stop writing that chapter, and then I'd start writing another chapter, and then I'd come back to the other chapter, and I'd start writing, and I'd go back to the politics chapter, and I'd write more on that. And I'd go back and forth to other chapters, and I have a total of 9 chapters in my book. And I wrote it with heart, with diligence, persistence, and that's how I completed my book. Finally, after I completed my book in April, I had it re-edited so that every thing showed up on the computer program to have it printed out. And that took some work. Even after Abdullah got the rough copy, there was glitches in the book, so we had to take care of that. That was taken care of. I paid Matt Johnson like $3,000 for proofreading the book in Spanish, and having it written in Spanish. And I paid him another $3,000 to as a bonus toward the book. And I promised him other bonuses in the future because I always want to take care of my friends. It's not about money with me. It's about having my friends in my corner and me being in their corner. But he blew that opportunity about me ever producing more books in the future and giving him goodwill money from our friendship. That's over with. So his own greed overtook him. When he went after my $150,000, he fucked himself out of a lot of money in the future, hopefully. Because hopefully a lot of people will buy my book and read it, and they'll enjoy it. I think it's the best book out there, and it's always been the best book out there from the time it was completed. You know, it's got some humor in my book. I nicknamed some of the Democrats. I nicknamed Chuck Schumer Pinocchio because he's the worst liar in Washington, D.C., the biggest liar in Washington, D.C. Adam Schiff, I give him the same name as Trump gave him, Pencil Neck Schiff. So that's a great name. I call Pete Buttigieg Lollipop Pete. I call Nancy Pelosi the bitch from San Francisco. I call Omar from Minnesota, Congresswoman, who's got the different headpiece on her head every day and acts like she believes in her God. And she doesn't believe in her God because if she believed in her God, she wouldn't be supportive of abortion, which is the greatest gift God can give us, is birth and life. And she backs abortions, Planned Parenthood. She backs all that. So if she backs that publicly, that's wrong. She backs it publicly because it gets her votes. That's how she gets voted in. But she can't back something publicly and then act like she believes in her God. And if she has any disbelief in her God about what her God gives her standards to believe in, and she can call her God and give her God any name she wants. But her belief in God, when she stabs her God in the back and goes public against his belief, then her belief is not true, and she is wearing a phony headpiece. That's all it boils down to. That headpiece she's got on her head, she switches the colors and tries to be quite fashionable over it. And it's a scam. It's a mental scam. She's scamming the public because she doesn't represent the public. She represents herself, and she wants votes, just like any other Democratic politician. And any Republican politician, they do the same thing. They scam. They scam for money. 98% of all politicians scam for money. 98% of all politicians receive donations from Big Pharma. That's a scam. Hey, wait, when they get elected, they're supposed to represent the American people, just like John McCain was supposed to represent the American people that voted for him and said, oh, don't worry, I'll vote against Obamacare. And sure enough, when he got elected, he was a deciding vote and voted to keep Obamacare in. And then he died. God bless you, John. I mean, I hope you went to the place you wanted to. But I don't want to go to the same spot and have to shake your hand. I didn't have the opportunity to vote for you, so you didn't rob me as badly as the voters that voted for you. So you were lying to them. You weren't lying to me, but you lied to the American public because you said it on national news, and you said it and quoted yourself many times that you would vote against Obamacare. So it was known to the American public what you said. And you left that behind. So that makes you a loser in politics. The biggest winner in politics is Trump, hands down. Trump began cleaning up Washington, D.C., the D.C. swamp, in 2016 when he got elected. And he had to change a lot of Republicans' ways because a lot of Republicans were on the take. The goodwill Republicans, they want to call themselves Republicans, but they're not really a Republican. I call them rated R Republicans in my book. They're not real Republicans. And Mitch McConnell is a perfect example of that. Along with Ryan, who was the leader of the House when Trump was elected. They had control over the House, and Ryan was a bum. He couldn't get him to vote for anything. And he quit politics. I think Ryan, got involved with Fox News. And that's not a good thing. Because Ryan was a rated R Republican. He couldn't make his mind up on what he wanted. Paul Ryan. That was his name, Paul Ryan. Anyway, I call Pete Buttigieg Lollipop Pete. I think that's a beautiful name for him because he would rather suck on a lollipop than work. And fine with him. To each his own. But don't waste our time acting like you're a public servant and take your vacations and take your paternity leave and everything like that. And then while the trains are crashing off the tracks, you're not taking care of business. And you're the last person in the world to go to the town in Idaho, or not Iowa, Ohio. I take that back. I got this from my father. I'll say a name, and then I'll say the second name, and I'll say the third name, but it's Ohio. when he went to Ohio. I think it was called Palestine, Idaho. Ohio, right? Palestine, Ohio, where the train crashed off the track and had all the chemicals, and the air was exposed, and a lot of people got sick. And the Biden regime didn't give a shit about what was going on, and sat there on their ass while people in Palestine, Ohio, were sick and near to death. I mean, some people died. I believe some. I don't quote me, but I'll find that out. But I'm saying is like it was a sick, sad community when that happened, and the D.C. swamp, including the Biden regime, just sat on their ass, acted like nothing happened. Imagine if a train went off the track close to Washington, D.C., what would happen? What they would have done? They would have taken care of business immediately, because that's a Democratic community. All around Washington, D.C. is loaded with Democrats. It's loaded up. But Ohio, that was a Republican state and a Republican town. Palestine was like 80% Republican. Oh, let's let them suffer. Let's not do anything for them, because it's a Republican community anyway. We don't have to cater to them. That's how Democrats are. They cater to their own. That's why they don't represent the American people. They're nothing but Democratic activists, and they cater to their party, and they all stick together. Oh, they all stick together. Even if a lot of them believe in something else, they'll still vote the other way, and they all vote for the same thing. That's why they cannot have control over the House, because if they have control over the House, all they're going to do is waste the American public's time and try to impeach Trump and go after his agenda, just try to knock it down every way and shape and form that they possibly can. And that's just exactly why you cannot give the Democrats power. You cannot give them power anymore. They have to, basically, the Democratic Party needs to be extinguished, because it's nothing but a strong socialist movement. And that was proven when Madani won the election as mayor in New York City. So all I can say is, I'll talk about politics all the time in my podcast, but let me tell you about like when after I got out of jail and I went down to Fort Myers to meet Waters and try to have him sign my book. Well, by the time I was able to get out of that line and have Waters sign my book, my dog would have died of dehydration sitting in that heat in my car. And I just said to heck with it, and I left. I couldn't take it anymore, and I just said, no way. I tried to get somebody to hand him a copy of my book, so he'd read it, because I wanted to get on his show. If I could get on his show, then I could be known publicly, and I could explain myself and possibly sell my book. That was the purpose of my road trip. Of course, I was looking out for number one. You have to look out for number one before you can look out for number two. So you have to look out for yourself, and you have to stand up for your own rights. That's what life is all about. So if you stand up for your own beliefs, and you take your strength and you give it to other people, that's what I try to do. So I'm trying to give my strength to Trump. I'm trying to give him my God-given talent, my ability to talk, my ability to speak. I've never spoken in front of a large crowd. I like to believe that I can. I don't think I'd get nervous. I have a good voice to speak, and I have a lot of things to say. And God gave me a lot of knowledge through my travels. So that's another reason why I have no fear of speaking in front of a large crowd. I always thought Trump was going to get shot. And I warned him when I wrote my cards to him, my gift cards. I wrote them daily to him while I was on the road trying to meet him. My first stop with Waters, and I left because I just said, there's no way I'm going to get to meet him in time. I don't want a dead dog on my hands. This guy's depending on me, and without me, my dog doesn't eat or drink water or stay out of the heat. I can lock her up in the heat, but if I keep her locked up in the heat, that's on me, right? Well, it's on me, but my dog dies over it. So I left, and then I drove to Mar-a-Lago. I didn't want anything to do with Fort Myers. It was kind of like a dumpy town in Florida. I don't think it's one of the most beautiful towns in Florida. I'm not saying that it's like not a place to visit because it's on the ocean, but it's kind of a rundown town. They're trying to build it up, but I wasn't impressed with Fort Myers, Florida. I like Daytona Beach, Florida. I thought that was a nice town, nice, beautiful area, and it seemed modern. It wasn't run down. I like nearly every town in Florida that I've been to, but I haven't been to every town. I haven't been to Jacksonville, Florida. I've driven past it, but I haven't spent any time in Jacksonville. I would like to because they play live poker there, so I hope to go back soon. I've been to the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino down in by Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, Fort Lauderdale area. That area. I stayed there, and I went down there and stayed after I tried to meet Trump, and hung out for a couple of days. I spent time in Mar-a-Lago, and I went to his guard gate to his house. I tried to get in to meet him, and his security said the only way that you can meet Trump is you're going to have to write to him and get him to respond. You can't call him. You're going to have to write to him. And they gave me an address to write to him, and I wrote to him, and I sent him my book. I sent him a copy of my book. And I wrote him a different gift card every single day I was on the road. And I would mail it to that address. And after trying to meet him in Mar-a-Lago and getting the address to write to him and send him a copy of my book, I drove over to the Palm Beach golf course, his golf course, beautiful golf course, beautiful resort, and hung out there and ate lunch at the resort, and I left my book. I gave a copy of my book to a golfer who said he knew Trump, and I never got any reaction from him whatsoever. He never called me back. Nothing ever happened from that, so I wasted a copy on him. And gave a copy of my book to the maitre d', who was handling the valet, or the check-in, or whatever, and never got any response from him. And heck, I don't even know if they wrote my book. I mean, I read my book. I don't even know if they read it. I mean, chances are they probably didn't. I mean, I'm not famous, right? Why would anybody want to read my book if they didn't know I was interesting enough to listen to or to read from? So I hope that I'm interesting to you. I mean, if you think you're going to find somebody more interesting on a podcast, then don't waste your time with me. Because I have all the confidence in the world that I am the most interesting person to listen to, because I lived a notorious life, more notorious than any podcaster alive. And I am the real Roadrunner. I am the real deal. And I've never had a job in my lifetime, so that makes me kind of like a gangster. I mean, I'm kind of like a modern-day white-collar gangster. Never carried a weapon. I'm a peaceful gangster. I'm like I always did things that I believed in. Hey, sure, I had a fallacy about going out and robbing a bank when I was a kid and dream about it. I used to dream about being in a helicopter and sticking a rope when I was a kid, because you're not a practical thinker when you're a kid. And sticking a rope around Moroni, the golden Moroni on top of the temple in Salt Lake City, Utah, lassoing him around the neck and yanking him off the top of the temple in a helicopter and driving away with that gold. Hey, I'm like a rich man. I've committed a great crime, a great caper. And so basically, I thought the Mormon church was full of shit right from the start. I never paid my tithing. I never made it past being a deacon. And they tried to get me to go to church and become a priest, and I never got that far. I stopped going to church at the age of 12 or 14. I just didn't want to go anymore. I remember sitting there on Sunday, and my father would say, well, do you want to sit here and watch football, or do you want to go skiing on a Sunday, or whatever he'd say that occasionally. I'd say, well, what do you think? He said, well, God's in the mountains. He's not in this house right now. We go to the mountains and enjoy nature and go skiing or go fishing or whatever. And that's what we'd do. I'd hang out with my father on Sundays. My mother would go to church. And my father didn't like going to church either. He thought they were full of shit because he donated money to the church. And then, like, right after he donated money to the church, we lived like no more than 200 yards away from the church on Holly Lane. We lived on Holly Lane. That's where I lived, 4693 Holly Lane in Holiday, Utah. It's a beautiful house where I was raised. We moved there when I was 3 years old from Sugar House, where I was born. I was born in Sugar House, right by the Villa movie theater. It's now a rug shop, competitor to my brother's rug shop. Now, if I ever wanted to buy a Persian rug, I'd go buy a rug at this rug shop. I'd never go to my brother's place and buy a rug at his rug shop. I wouldn't give him the action. And he doesn't give me action, he ain't getting action for me. That's how it works. So that old Villa Theater is now a rug shop in Sugar House. Go check it out. Go buy a Persian rug there. You like it. Put it on your hardwood floor in your house or whatever. Persian rugs are the greatest. Most of them are made in Pakistan, by the way. That's where my brother would go over to get his rugs in Pakistan. And he took his trip to Pakistan, and I took my trip to India. I've never been to Pakistan, and I don't care to go there other than just seeing the mountains. If I ever went to Pakistan, I'd want to go visit K2. I'd want to go hike up to the summit. I would not want to hike up to the top of the mountain. I'm 70 years old. I'm not interested in doing that, but I'd like to take a hike up there and see God's country and be able to stare at the mountain, and be beneath the mountain, not be on top of it. That'd be my high. That was my father's high when we went and saw that mountain in Switzerland. What's that mountain in Switzerland called, Ivan? Anyway, that resort in just outside of L.A. is called Big Bear, where they have the fake snow also. Sometimes they get good snowfall, and you're skiing on real snow, which is not bad for living in L.A. And you can go to Big Bear, which is 2 hours away from downtown L.A. That's a pretty good move. I mean, why not? Unless you want to go to Utah and ski the best snow on earth. Then you drive or hop in a plane. I suggest you drive through southern Utah, because southern Utah is the ultimate. That's the most beautiful part of the state of Utah, is southern Utah, and all its different canyons. Thanks, Ivan. That mountain is called Mount Matterhorn in Switzerland. Remember the old movie and was made about the Matterhorn? It was a great movie. I remember seeing that in school. They showed that to the entire school. And the guy who was in the movie, the youngster who was in the movie, can't remember his name, but he was like, he was in the Hawaii Five-0. He was the assistant detective to Jack Lord in Hawaii Five-0. What a great TV series that was. That was fantastic. Jack Lord, he was the greatest. He was the greatest actor in any TV series made, as far as I'm concerned, as far as making that TV series as powerful as it was. Jack Lord ruled, like Johnny Carson ruled in talk shows. Johnny Carson was the greatest also. Jimmy Kimmel can kiss my ass. George Clooney. Fuck George Clooney. Fuck John Cusack. Let's keep on going with that, but I'll just include the names. No, I have to say fuck Robert De Niro. Fuck Robert De Niro. And he's a piece of shit. I even have a hard time watching his movies because when he plays that character in The Godfather 2, it's the greatest sequel ever made, The Godfather 2 to The Godfather, the greatest movie ever made. The sequel, Godfather 2, is equally as good. And Robert De Niro rules in that movie. But that's not his character in real life. The character he played in that movie is not his character in real life. Because he plays the character of a Trump supporter, of a guy who believes in the people, doesn't believe in the system. Robert De Niro is a Democratic activist who tries to get all his puppets to follow him. That's why he always speaks on the news, because he thinks he has such a strong crowd that's following him, because he is a great actor, no doubt. He used his talent well. But he didn't learn how to shut up and just be an actor, because I can't watch his movies anymore. I mean, the Bronx Tale, I mean, him playing that part in the Bronx Tale, and in The Godfather, Raging Bull, he was a rebel in Raging Bull. He was a rebel like me. I mean, like, I'm a rebel. I stand up against the system. I've been standing up against the system when they're wrong my entire life. Don't get me wrong. I love ICE. I think ICE is the greatest. I think ICE is like the greatest getting these bums out of our country and taking these wannabe gangsters out of our country and want to rob our public and committing crimes and raping young women or even raping young kids. I mean, just traffickers committing all kinds of crimes. Get them out. Get them the fuck out of America. They don't belong in America. They don't deserve to be in America. Let them go back to their third world country where they're from and enjoy it and be who they are. We don't need them. So God bless ICE. I love ICE. And all the wacky Democrats out there holding their signs and standing in their costumes, kiss my ass. Guys, you can talk your way out of a wet paper bag. So go on and be who you are, but don't waste my time. And stop messing with ICE, because ICE wins in the end. I guarantee it. ICE will win in the end. And all these people that mess with ICE, go ahead. Spank them. Throw them in jail. Go ahead. Do it. Teach them a lesson. I spent 90 days in jail in Atlantic City. And I'll tell you that story in a few minutes. But after I left and left Fort Myers and went up to Mar-a-Lago to meet Trump, Trump had already gone up to New York City, so I knew where I was headed. I was going to New York City. Ultimately, I was going there. But after driving through the state of Florida from the top to the bottom to meet Trump, I thought, well, I'll stay a couple of days in Florida and enjoy myself. When I stayed around the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino and around the Miami area, Fort Lauderdale, and enjoyed myself. Went to the Hard Rock Hotel and played live poker, played pot limit, Omaha. But I hated the way the game broke up early. I mean, I'm from Vegas. I'm used to playing like 24/7 in a good game that doesn't break. I'll never play in a casino where they close the game down like they do in Lake Tahoe. They close it down at midnight. So I would never play in that poker room again. When they close the poker room, I'm not playing in that poker room. Poker room needs to stay open 24/7. And if the games break early in a poker room, I'm going to have a hard time going back also, because I hate it when I'm stuck and I can't play my way out. Because sometimes when you're playing poker, you don't get hit by the deck in the beginning. You get stuck and you have to play your way out. And then the game gets short, and you especially have to play your way out. When the game gets short, it gets down to where it went from a 9 or 10-handed game. And pot limit Omaha is only played 9-handed or 8-handed. Sometimes they play it 9-handed, but it's most often played 8-handed. And when it's played 8-handed, and it goes down to like where it's only got like five players, then it's a short-handed game. Six-handed, it gets a little bit short. 7-handed, it's okay. It's almost like a full game. Sometimes a player will hop in and fill it back up. When it gets down to 5-handed, the game is going to have a hard time getting back up to 8-handed unless like a few walk-ins come in, which is hard to happen, hard to occur during the late hours. And anyway, I'm in the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, and around midnight the game starts to break, and there's no walk-ins getting in the game, so I take my $1,000 loss and I quit. And went back to the room. I never came back. Got some sleep. Never came back. I drove straight up to Georgia, the beautiful state of Georgia, and spent a couple days, 2 or 3 days in Georgia. Stayed in Atlanta for one night, and stayed in a small town in Georgia another day, and then drove up through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. I stayed in the room there, and then I couldn't believe how poor the community was in West Virginia. It was like one of the poorest areas in America, and it was homespun, but it was like not modern, you know. Remember going to a good Chinese fast food place that had really good food and taking it back to my room and eating it. And I always try to eat as good as possible, even when I'm out on the road. I'll always try to eat good food. I don't like eating fast food, McDonald's like Trump does, or like Burger King or Wendy's or any of these other fast food places. In-N-Out Burger, which is very popular on the West Coast. There's lines of people waiting in cars to get their food on a daily basis. They're all programmed to eat that bad food. That fast food. I don't eat that fast food. I eat the good food. Greek food's my favorite. I love Mexican food. Greek food is my favorite. And I'll take Chinese food or Thai food. And Mexican food I love. There's a great Mexican restaurant, and it's got great food in Las Vegas. It's on Sahara. In the same parking lot as the U.S. Bank building, right across the street from right across the parking lot from the U.S. Bank building. That's how I discovered that, because I had an attorney that I was meeting for my wife's visa to get her over here, and it turned out that she was basically a bum attorney and didn't know what she was doing, and so I went and got somebody else. I actually have an appointment with an attorney this Monday for my wife's visa, because my other bum attorney, Russ Gubler, who works for Matt Johnson, who I originally discovered to find Matt Johnson, beat me out of money, you know, overcharged me. And the second I fired Matt and Mike and turned them into the bar, Russ Gubler would no longer do the work. He said, I'm done. I'm no longer doing the work. You fired my boss, I'm done. Well, what about the money I gave you? Does that mean anything? I don't get that back, but you're telling me you're done with your service? Yeah. That's how he is. He's a whore lawyer who really represents himself and represents his boss, because once I fired his boss, he wasn't going to do any more work. Even though I paid him to do the work and complete the first task, he didn't want. He wasn't about to do it. So I'm exposing him for that, and just reminding the public that, Russ, you're just another greedy whore lawyer working for another whore lawyer, and your boss is a shyster and you're a shyster, along with Mike Stamp. Good luck with that. And kiss my ass in the meantime, and I'll see you in district court, Matt and Mike. So, after I left Mar-a-Lago and went up to the Palm Beach golf course and played my poker in the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, I had enough of Florida, and I drove straight up through Florida and went up to Georgia and hung out in Georgia for a few days. North Carolina and South Carolina drove through, or if I did drive through that, wherever the 95 took me, that's where I was en route. Directly up to New York City to meet Trump. And maybe watch his court case. Well, I never got into his court case. It was jam-packed by the time I got there. People waiting in line to go in there and sit in the courtroom. Well, I wasn't going to be able to say anything in the courtroom. So I just get my cup of coffee at the coffee shop and stand outside where they had the cameras and try to meet a newscaster and speak my mind. And and say good things about Trump, which I did. And I got in front of the camera a few times and talked. Maybe somebody even saw me doing it. I always like to introduce myself as a Roadrunner, because I am the Roadrunner who wrote the book, The Roadrunner in the Yellow Zone. Well, I was unable to meet Trump, and I went to his Trump Bar and Grill in the Trump Tower. I ate lunch there every day for 5 days in a row. Every day I ate lunch, and I'd walk up to Central Park. And I wasn't smoking weed. I quit smoking weed after I got popped in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so I was off the weed deal, and my wife was extremely happy about that also. She's never done a drug in her life, so she knows she married a bad boy. But I haven't smoked a joint since February 9th, 2024. 2025. I haven't smoked a joint since February 9th, 2025. And I remember walking through Central Park and thinking about the good old days when I sold batteries and ring flashers on the trains, and I'd take my break from the trains and I'd go through the Central Park and I'd smoke a joint in the daytime or nighttime. It didn't scare me to be there in the nighttime. I wasn't afraid. And I'd go somewhere down a private like walkway or whatever and hang out on a bench and smoke a joint and not worry about the cops coming up and bothering me. I'd have enough of a distance between me where if the cop ever did appear, I could just like kind of put it out or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really worry about it. I was in New York City. I didn't care. It's not like Louisiana. I think New York's like Vegas. The cops don't give a shit about stupid stuff like that. L.A., same thing. They don't care about stupid stuff like that. Until you get down to San Diego, then the cops act a little differently than they do in L.A. We're a conservative environment. Well, it's being overtaken now and it's becoming more wide open like L.A. Well, anyway, after staying in Edison, New Jersey, and taking the bus every day to New York City, to the Trump Tower to try to meet Trump, and hanging out at the Trump Bar and Grill, and giving his security a gift card that I wrote to hand to Trump on a daily basis. There was no response. He could have called me on the phone. But Trump was busy. He was too busy doing other things. Maybe he just thought that I was a stalker. Maybe I was stalking him, or maybe like I was a nutcase or whatever. Well, I love you, Donald Trump. I love you as my president. I think you're the greatest, and I am not a stalker. I'm 100% a true supporter of you. I've never given you a dime like Elon Musk gave you millions. I give you mental support. I expose you publicly in a positive fashion and say everything good that I possibly think about you. I know that you're a human being just like myself, and you have your fears, and I warned you in my cards and my writing that they're going to try to shoot you, and sure enough they did. They tried to shoot you in Butler, and they tried to shoot you and the guy was going to try to shoot you at your golf course and in Florida, but they got to him before that happened. So my instincts told me they were going to try to shoot you, and sure enough they did. So I'm 100% behind you, Mr. Trump, and I just wish that we could meet someday. I just wish that maybe you could be in my corner someday. I've got the feds coming after me in court and indicted me in a federal court case for selling sex capsules, for having a sex capsule company and being successful, being a successful entrepreneur like yourself. But not on your level, but I became a successful entrepreneur with hardly a dime in my pocket and built my business into a very successful business through hard work and persistence and the love of what I was doing and belief of what I was doing. Because I believed that I was doing the right thing, and I still do to this day. I know that I was on God's path. I know that I was on the correct path in life. I was on a much stronger path selling sex capsules than I ever was as a pool player, a poker player, because I only represented myself as a pool player, a poker player. I was trying to make scores, trying to beat people out of their money playing pool and beat people out on their money playing poker. That's not very gratifying. There's no gratification about being a gambler. That's why most gamblers are miserable. But I enjoy playing poker and competing. That's why I love poker. I love playing poker, and I love winning. I love winning more than losing. Who doesn't? But selling sex capsules and wholesaling sex capsules is the strongest thing I've ever done in my lifetime. Because not only did I save thousands of men and even women from having heart attacks, but I also eliminated the chance of a man or a woman inheriting Alzheimer's disease when they took my sex capsule, which had sildenafil in it. And it's been proven. It's been proven by and talked to by every news agency in 2022. Put it on national news, CBS, ABC, CNBC, CNN, Fox News. It didn't matter. Any news station in 2022, they all said the same thing. When sildenafil is taken regularly, which is Viagra, the only ingredient in Viagra, and tadalafil is the only ingredient in Cialis. But when sildenafil in Viagra, and they're talking about Viagra when they're talking about this on the national news, they're not talking about sex capsules because they don't have any knowledge about sex capsules. They just know about Viagra and that it's got sildenafil in it. The reason why they know it's got sildenafil in it is because it's required by prescription. So the whole public, the entire American public knows that. Then the American public also knows that all these sex capsules are spiked, and they're spiked with sildenafil also. They don't, and they have a little bit of tadalafil, and a lot of the public knows that also, because the tadalafil is what makes a man hard, what makes his libido area hard, and the sildenafil and the tadalafil in a female pill is what adds moisture to a woman's libido area, and cleans her breast tissue out and her glands. And both my sister and mother died from breast cancer. My mother first at the age of 60 when I was 27 years old. And my sister at the age of 54 when I was 43 years old died from breast cancer, both of them, before I got in the sex capsule business. So it was a blessing that I got in the sex capsule business. I have no difference in thought that God put me on this path on purpose. How did I get in the sex pill business is bizarre. I'm in a poker room, a busted out poker player playing poker with less than a $1,000 bankroll, playing poker, playing low limit poker, trying to keep from going broke and paying my weekly rent and my weekly rental when a guy follows me in the food court at the Subway food station in the food court and says, "Hey, I was told to talk to you." He said to me, "I was told that you were a good hustler and that you might be interested in selling these vitamins that I have." Yeah, that happened. And that's how I got in the sex capsule business, but I'll get back to that later. It's incredible to think that, that I've done what I've done and I've been where I've been, and I ended up being in the sex capsule business and being involved in it for 16 years. I never sold any other product, only sex capsules, because it's all that I believed in. They tried to get me to sell spice that was really popular back then, and it was even manufactured in Utah, manufactured in other areas in America. But it was all garage manufacturing. It was like underground manufacturing. It was an evil ingredient, and it was an evil drug that they were putting out on the market. Spice, it was addicting. It was like heroin. It was like being addicted to heroin. You couldn't get off of it. People were getting addicted to it right and left, but the profit was huge. It was incredible selling spice, but I never sold spice. They tried to get me to sell spice, and I said, "Kiss my ass. I don't believe in it. I'm not getting involved. No chance." And I continued with selling sex capsules, which was a struggle the first 5 years. So I was talking about selling sex capsules and not selling spice, and that was not a good thing to do. That was an evil drug. It was a bad drug. It was bad for people. It was addicting, physically addicting, and just as bad as heroin. So spice was around for a very short period of time. It was a very high profit merchandise for the wholesaler that's selling it to the store, and it was a very high profit merchandise for the store selling it to the customer. And the stores that were selling it to the customer, I guarantee they got heat later on when they sold spice. Spice was a bad thing. People went to prison for spice, and stores had to pay huge fines for selling spice. So I'm so glad that I was strong and remained relentless and just refused to sell it, because that was good karma for me in the future, and that's how I was able to survive in the sex capsule business, only selling sex capsules and nothing else for 16 years. And the manufacturers trying to coax me into selling spice for them and purchasing spice and being a wholesaler, they were upset about it. They wanted me. They knew I could sell, and they could see that I was selling sex capsules effectively in Utah and in Vegas, and they wanted me. They wanted me to sell spice. I told them, fuck off. I want nothing to do with it. And talking about saying that word to just the spice dealers, I can also say the same word to John Cusack, Jeff Daniels, Alec Baldwin, Robert De Niro, George Clooney. And God bless George Clooney for like going back to and moving to France and becoming a citizen of France. Have a good life. Enjoy yourself. Because I think your movies suck anyway. I don't believe in your character, never did in the movies. You're not that great of an actor. Sure, you're a good-looking guy. That's not being a great actor. So if you hadn't been born good-looking, you never would have been successful in the first place. So enjoy your time in Ireland. And just say all you bad mouthers of Trump that are suffering from Trump syndrome, that you've had it ever since 2016 when he was elected. In 2015, you laughed about him running for president, including the news agencies laughed about him and said, oh, he's got no chance of winning. And that's when I started following Trump and started following him reverently and diligently, watching the news every day. And I didn't suffer from Trump syndrome. I enjoyed the love that Trump was giving the American people, and I was giving him love back. And that's not a syndrome. That's a beautiful thing, because love is much greater than hate. So all those people suffering from Trump syndrome, you're just haters. That's all you are. You're just haters wasting your time. And you obviously have mental problems in the first place. So you wouldn't dwell on Trump. And that goes for Rosie O'Donnell in Ireland. You can definitely kiss my ass. While you sit on your fat ass and complain about Trump every day and try to remain being noticed. When you went to Ireland, didn't you want to get away from this? Why would you want to continue to involve yourself with talking about Trump? You left America. We're glad to get rid of you. Bye-bye. So all of these people, all the people I mentioned, kiss my ass. Life goes on, and love is much greater than hate. And all I can say is Trump is a winner. Trump is like a definite winner. He beat the system. He stood up against the system and won against the system. They wanted to throw him in jail. They indicted him for this and that and everything, such as anything they could think of. This guy that tries to act like a macho man, Eric Swalwell. You remind me of like a guy that behind closed doors, like you have the character of like a weak man. You're a weak man. Eric Swalwell was a weak man. He couldn't even lock it down with a woman unless he paid her off, and he ended up with a Chinese spy. That's what he ended up with, a spy from China that used him to get information, because he's an idiot. He's a sucker around women. Eric Swalwell, what a loser. And you're talking about how you're going to go after Trump when you want to run for the governor of California? Please. You've got a better chance of getting bitten by the sharks if you go out swimming in the ocean of sharks attacking you than you ever have of being elected as governor of California. People are not going to vote for you. You're a weak man. Live with it. Deal with it. And keep trying to impress everybody with how many weights you lift, how much weight you lift when you lift weights, along with Mandini. I'm not a strong man myself. When I go to the weight room, I'm not lifting that much weight. But my last set, I'm always asking for a spotter because I'm not embarrassed. Everybody in the room can watch and see the smaller amount of weight I'm lifting compared to like a regular weightlifter or a guy who's in really good shape and much stronger than me. Because I'm not strong in the gym. I just work out and try to be the best that I can be. That's what going to a gym is all about. And I love going to a gym. I love going to work out. And my favorite thing about working out is a sauna. After I'm done working out, I love to sit in the sauna for like 20 minutes and sweat all the toxins out of my system. And sweating is healthy. And I'm not damaging any joints in my body by working out in the first place. I work out very effectively, and I don't lift too much weight. Form is the most important thing when you're working out. When you lose your form, you're lifting too much weight. So you always want to use proper form and isolate that muscle that you're working on. And I take a couple sex capsules each week. They last 3 to 4 days. So I've got that sex capsule in my system. So when I'm working out, that sex capsule, that natural testosterone animal bone capsule, is going to flow to whatever area of the body the blood is demanded. So that's why taking sex capsules before you work out is a good thing. Along with fighting COVID in the past. That's what the public caught on to. So that's another reason why sex capsules became even more popular after COVID came out. You can't deny how valuable sex capsules are to humans in America, the human beings throughout the world. The government doesn't want people to know how good sex capsules are for you, because if they did and they let you know how healthy they are, and they're much better than a Viagra pill or a Cialis pill, then Viagra and Cialis is going to lose its cells. The cells are going to go down in the future. That's what's going to happen if the public becomes educated about sex capsules. So I'm going to do my best to educate you about sex capsules and remind everybody it's a good thing to take. And women, taking a female pill, that's another good thing, because that cleans your breast tissue out in your glands and adds moisture to your libido area, which eliminates future disease from occurring. So taking a couple of sex pills, women, each week, taking a couple pills for yourself each week after a good meal and drinking fluids is another good thing also. I made a scientific breakthrough on pregnant women. 600 women died from pregnancy deaths in 2022. 600. And that means 1,200 people died. If they had a twin in their body, 2 babies in their womb, that means more than 1,200 people died from that pregnancy death. Because not only they died, but their infant died. All due to heart disease, some form of heart disease. 600 women died in America in 2022. And this is a consistent statistic. This is a consistent statistic. It's definitely consistent. I can guarantee you it's a stat. Consistently, in 2022, 600 women died. In 2024, 600 women died from pregnancy deaths also. A lot of those deaths were caused from heart attacks, from having a heart attack. Their heart burst because they were working so hard to pump the blood throughout their body into their baby's womb, the heart couldn't take it anymore and burst. And they had a heart attack. And that's exactly what causes a heart attack, lack of blood flow. The blood gets clogged up and it's hard to pump the blood through the human body. Now they've got a baby in their womb, and it's even harder for them to pump the blood to the baby's womb, so their heart becomes even more stressed. That's not a good thing. So I wrote in my book that a woman with high blood pressure while pregnant should take 2 sex capsules each week. Not only will the sex capsule last longer in their system and enable the blood to flow throughout their body more readily and more successfully, and also to their baby's womb, but also the small amount of sildenafil inside the bloodstream of the woman will flow to the baby's bloodstream, and the baby will have just a tinge of sildenafil in their system also, which will, I believe, almost eliminate them ever having the chance of inheriting Alzheimer's disease in their entire lifetime. Now, I can't prove this. This is not a fact. But nature is logic. And I have logical thought. I wrote about nature in my book, in my Dogs and Nature chapter. And this is totally logical thought. If the baby has a little bit of sildenafil in their bloodstream, an infant, for the day of birth till 6 years of age, is the most important time of development for the human body. The most important time, the first 6 years of a human being's life. So while that baby is in his or her mother's womb, and he or she is receiving that small amount of sildenafil in their bloodstream, is a good thing. Is a good thing. This is good for the baby because it will eliminate possibly Alzheimer's disease from ever occurring in their entire lifetime. Now, this can't be proven now because I just made the scientific breakthrough. I'm the only person to put this on paper. I'm the only person with knowledge of this in the entire planet because I have logical thought and I think about nature on a daily basis. Our body is nature, and nature taking its course. All our organs inside our body depend on one another. And all our organs depend on healthy blood flow. Healthy blood flow helps eliminate disease. This is why sex capsules help fight against inheriting COVID disease, because improved blood flow eliminates disease from occurring, any form of disease. When a woman gets older and they get drier, then they inherit more diseases which can occur because of their dryness. Dryness causes disease in a woman. And this is why if they have more moisture in their libido area, many diseases can be eliminated from occurring in the first place, including breast cancer and tumors, which my mother and sister both died from breast cancer before I was in the sex capsule business. So I know that God intended me to get on this path. There's no doubt in my mind that fate took its course. Just like God inspired me to write my book and complete my book. Now, I'm not a religious person. I'm a Jack Mormon, and I'd much rather be a Jack Mormon than a fake Mormon like Matt Johnson that was once a bishop and sits in his church in North Logan or Eden, Utah, or wherever he goes to church on Sundays while he's up there every weekend and flying up there every weekend on my money that he stole from me on my $150,000 retainer, because I know that he didn't get 1/3 of the retainer. He got half. He would not give Mike Samp 2/3, and he would take 1/3, because without Matt Johnson, Mike Samp never would have got a dime, and I never would have signed the contract. I signed the contract because I trusted Matt. I thought he was my next best friend in life, other than Abdullah from Chennai, India. Abdullah is like the same age as my wife, 35 years of age. In fact, he's like 2 or 3 months younger than my wife. And he raises goats. That's how he makes his living in India, because he wants to work for himself. I gave him that entrepreneurial spirit, and maybe he was born with it, but he wants to die an entrepreneur one way or the other. So Abdullah will always be my best friend in life, and if anybody can equal that, then I'm a lucky man to have a friend of that quality. But that's what he does. He raises goats for a living. He's a farmer in India. And people in India are survivors. They don't have the land that we have in America, or farmers or ranchers have in America. They have to make moves to raise those goats and feed those goats. And he's very street smart. Abdullah's like people in India are naturally street smart because of the environment they grow up in. much more so than in America. I mean, most people are like live in a very protected environment in America. Like I was born and raised in Utah, and Utah is my state. I can guarantee that I'm a rebel from Utah, and I love Utah. I want to go back there and live and relax and watch the Utah Jazz play basketball, which is my favorite basketball team. And I hope to root for the Utah Avalanche, the new hockey team they have. The Vegas Golden Knights cost me $8,900. I cost myself $8,900. Nobody forced me to make that bet on the second game when they played the Edmonton Oilers in 2025 in the playoffs. And the Edmonton Oilers beat them in overtime that game. And I lost $8,900. I put up $8,900 to win $6,500 on the Knights. I had to give $2,400 extra to win $6,500. So I had to put up $8,900. So I had to make a money bet, an odds bet. That's how you bet in hockey. And you don't bet on the points. You bet on the money line. And I made the largest sports bet I ever made in my lifetime, and I lost it. And I've never made a bet since. But I'll exclamate that to one important thing. I will say that I'll make a $20 sports bet anytime I want because I'm an emotional bettor. I'm going to bet on my favorite team. I don't bet sports. I wrote in my book to never bet on sports. I wrote in my book to never gamble in the pit, to only play live poker in poker rooms, and that's the only game that I play in casinos because I don't gamble against a casino. I use the casino to get individuals in the casino, in the poker room, walk-ins, whether they're staying in the hotel above or to walk in the casino to play in that poker room. And personally, I like playing in California way better because the Vegas card rooms, the floor people, they have their head up their ass. They like you put them in a suit and they think they're a politician. They think they're in charge of everything. They don't really represent you. They represent themselves. They get broken off by different players. They throw them like a red bird, $5 chip here and there, or $10 in chips or whatever. They have no loyalty to anybody. They're only loyal to themselves. So floor men in Las Vegas can definitely kiss my ass. Floor people in California are the same way, no different. Floor people are meaningless when you toke them. I'd rather toke the dealer. But the dealer never tokes you back $1 when you lose a pot. So I don't like to give the dealer too much money when I win a pot because they're going to put me on a bad beat when I lose a pot. The best thing is to stay and remain not emotional when you're gambling. So if you toke it out of respect. You toke a dealer out of respect, and that's how they make their living, and that's what I do. I toke dealers. But I don't overspend when I toke because at the end of the year, I learned a long time ago as a limit poker player that if you toke a dealer like $1 after every hand that you win, and you played full time, 40 hours a week, you choked away $10,000 that year minimum, if not more. So I learned a long time ago to not over-toke dealers. And when I go to Vietnam and I toke, my wife thinks, oh, I'm just a flamboyant toker. I give away too much money when I tip a waitress or a waiter. Hey, I remind her, I'm a tight tipper. Believe me, I'm tight. I'm not like you think. People in America throw way more money and tip way more money than I do. I'm a conservative. I've always been a conservative with conservative thoughts. That's how I grew up. That's how my father raised me, and he did a good job because he taught me the most important thing, honesty, to be honest. If you're honest, you can remain strong. If you lie, you remain weak because you have to learn to lie your way out of everything. And that's what happened to Matt Johnson after he graduated from law school. He became weak. He forgot about the law that he studied in law school, which was the same law school my father went to, and he became weak later on and let greed overtake him. And then he hired an attorney underneath him, Russ Kubler, who's also greedy and has to give Matt a piece of everything that he earns from any client. So Matt gets a piece of everything, so he overcharges on purpose because he wants to make a great living also. And so he robs his clients, and Matt Johnson robs his clients. It just so happened that I was the best client that Matt Johnson had, and he would have made more money with me in the future than any other client he inherited. And Now he's cut out of my book. He would never get a dime from my book. No goodwill for me. It's over with. The only thing I'm going to do is try to get my $150,000 back in district court, or as much as I possibly can. But I'll enjoy bad-mouthing him now and in the future. Let me talk about more important things. Talking about trying to meet Trump back in New York City. Oh, boy. Going to the Trump Bar and Grill and eating the good food. The food was great. I eat something different every day. I have a good menu. Everybody was friendly with me, the security guards, everything. They laughed. Kind of laughed when I told them I gave my lawyers a $150,000 retainer because they already knew that I got snubbed. But I was naive. I believed in attorneys back then. I really did, especially after Matt won my first case. When Hamid, the printer, running the All-American Printing, he tried to rob me out of $15,000 when he sold me the Raiders tickets for the season. And I thank Hamid for trying to beat me out of $15,000 that I had to fight to get back. It took me 2 years to get back. And I thank him for giving me the battery charge and calling the police for no reason to blow completely out of proportion, that I pushed him against the wall and he landed on the ground and all that. I did. I pushed him and he landed against the wall. His body went up against the wall, but he never hit the ground. But of course he told the police that he hit the ground. But of course that was on camera because he had a camera on in his office, and that's what helped me win the case, because he was lying right from the start. He also lied and has attorney say that I had a gun out in my van, that I took him out to my van and I showed him my gun, which is bullshit because I never had a gun. So his attorney was lying in the courtroom also, which attorneys do all the time. They'll lie. Attorneys are natural-born liars in the first place, and they'll lie for their clients, whether they want to admit it or not. They will lie, and that's completely against their ethics. They're not supposed to lie about anything. But attorneys do lie, and the most important reason they learn to lie is for themselves, for the money they earn, for the money they get, for the money they get out of the client. Because these guys plan on getting me for more than $150,000. That was a setup. They never planned on giving it back. That's why they had me sign the contract. But getting me for more money, if they did indict me and take me to federal court, they would have tried to bleed me out of more money than that. So I'm so glad to have gotten rid of them. Now I have a public defender representing me, which is a good thing. I'm very lucky to have a public defender defending me in court. And I've got a good lawyer right now in my corner. So the Trump Bar and Grill was a great place to eat and great place to try to meet Trump, but I never was able to meet him. And I know that he went back to the Trump Tower after his court cases in downtown Manhattan, and back by the wholesale district where I used to score my batteries and ring flashers when I sold trains, sold batteries and ring flashers on the trains in New York City. When I was a crackhead, well, I was a part-time crackhead because I smoked like a chipmunk. But after trying to meet Trump and staying in Edison, the worst thing about staying in Edison is riding the bus, which was only the next stop was to Manhattan, but I was the closest place to the next stop to Manhattan, so that was a perfect place to stay. When I stayed in my motel in Edison, there were nice places to eat, and I enjoyed my time when I was there. And I would always walk my dog early in the morning. I'd get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and walk my dog and take my dog on a good walk so she could have her release, which dogs always do in the morning. And then I'd take her back to the room, and I'd have to sit her in that room. And I'd rush to Manhattan, and I'd make sure that I made it back to that room. If I left at 8 o'clock in the morning, I made sure that I was back in that room by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Leaving her in the room for longer than 8 hours is cruelty, but that's how long I'd leave her in the room. Made sure I gave her a good walk before. She was always waiting on the bed, wagging her tail when I showed up after trying to meet Trump. So I went out of my way as much as I possibly could on this road trip to meet Trump. It was the most expensive road trip that I've ever taken in my lifetime, that I've ever made in my lifetime. When I went to Europe with my mother and father and was the only child to take that trip, I was 14 years old. They paid for the trip, but I had to earn my spending money, and that's how it was. I had my own spending money, roughly $200 of my own money to spend and buy whatever I wanted. And if I wanted to buy a Coke and or buy some kind of an ornament, I remember buying like an elephant with ivory tusks in France and in Paris. Just things like that. That's how I spent my $200 that I had for my own personal expenses. But my father paid for everything on the trip. I was 14 years old, and I enjoyed it. It was the greatest trip I ever took in my lifetime. So it was a cheap trip for me, the cheapest trip of all. And I'll never forget that trip. Being with my mother and father and playing tennis in every country that we went to with my father. And I was almost as good as my father, but he was a better tennis player than me. And he always tried to make me a better player. And he taught me how to play with both hands. I never had a backhand. I'd hit the ball with my right hand and my left hand, and I'd hold the racket like this, hold the racket up here with my hands here, and then hold it with one hand on the right or take the other hand on the left and hit the ball. I'm naturally left-handed. Getting back to this road trip, trying to meet Trump, the most expensive trip I took in my life. It cost me $21,000 bond to get myself out of jail. I gave $9,000 to Mike Samp, $2,000 in commission, plus paid all his expenses, plus paid for the rental car that cost me $6,000 that I reimbursed him with because he had to use his credit card. So it cost me $30,000 right there. It also cost me all the money on the trip that I paid to meet Trump, to stay in the motels, to go back and forth here and there, and to drive back from New York without meeting Trump. I felt like my trip was a very non-successful trip. After all, I was thrown in jail. I never would have got thrown in jail if I hadn't got caught smoking weed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, half a joint. With a piece of shit police officer that tried to incarcerate me for more than that. And luckily, I was smart enough not to sign that piece of paper that he tried to hand to me, and I snatched it out of his hand and wanted to look at it. And I said, I'm looking at what I'm signing. Well, I wish I'd looked at what I signed when I signed that contract with Matt Johnson and Mike Samp, but I wasn't smart enough then. So I got smarter, a little smarter later on, and I've gotten way smarter since then. And weathered about, my thought is weathered about lawyers. Okay, be very, very careful who you pick. Make sure they represent you and not themselves. Driving back from New York to back to Vegas, it was a beautiful drive, and Sky had the time of her life riding in the car because Sky has gone across the country completely with me, all the way down to Florida, all the way up to New York, all the way back to Vegas. And when I was on my way back to Vegas, and I was in Iowa, I called a friend of mine named Bernie Devlin, who I consider to be a strong lifetime friend that I used to travel the road with. And I asked him a very important question. I said, Bernie, when we were on the phone, I said, when I called my family and I tried to get bailed out of jail, and they wouldn't even call my attorney and let them know where I was at, but it was my own money. I said, what if I called you? Would you put the money up so I could reimburse you? Would you have put the $21,000 up to bail me out of jail so I could reimburse you? And Bernie's a millionaire. And he said to me, he says, no, I wouldn't have put it up. I says, really, Bernie? I says, really? You wouldn't have put the money up? He says, no, I wouldn't have put it up. And I says, well, I appreciate your honesty, Bernie, but you and I are done. I've wasted my time being your friend, and I don't think you're my real friend because I know that I would have put the money up for you. But God bless. Take care of yourself. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of your life, and I'll see you later. And I took my phone, and I released his name from the phone number, so I no longer even know what his phone number is, and I no longer have his name in my phone, and I've never talked to Bernie since, other than one time I saw him at the World Series of Poker last summer. He was sitting at the next table in a tournament, and he nudged me on the back and said hello, and I said hello back, and that's the only time I've ever talked to Bernie or seen him or had any communication whatsoever since April 2023. 2024, April 2024. That's correct, April 2024. So it's been like not even a year, but It seems like a lot longer because I used to talk to Bernie all the time. So I wish you the best, Bernie. You live in a beautiful state, Utah, and Utah is my state just like it's yours, and I look forward to being in Utah later on in my life and enjoying myself also. Other than that, I'd just like to say, to end my podcast again, if you get bored in life, get a dog. Get a dog, preferably in an animal shelter. Get a dog. That's where they're most needed. And if you want to pay more money for a purebred and buy a dog out of the newspaper or whatever information you get to buy a dog, or go to a pet store to buy a dog and pay the high prices, so be it. Just remember that dog, no matter what you paid for it or what kind of breed that dog is, they all come straight from God. Because God is dog spelled backwards. And they depend on you, and they depend on your love. Take care. Talk to you next time.